let's brush this off the bays as quickly as possible. Get on with board 2.
Yes, yes, indeed. 2 looks right. Well, just as well that it didn't happen, you know. If we had a very exciting slam on, you know, where you need to guess the queen of diamonds to make. Could have been worse, David. Look on the bright side of it.
Well, of all the boards we'll watch in the next 2.5 days, this is probably in the bottom 5% for interest. So we're very grateful to the organisers for their minor mistake, and we didn't have to watch it and concentrate on the wonderful board 2 about to flip up on our screens. Do you think Rosenberg is happy with that nickname Mick, or would he just have preferred an M?
To get more letters in his surname, why did you not just write M. Rosenberg? Well, at least they could get ER in, Rosenberg, rather than Rosenb. Wouldn't that have been wiser, David?
Even wiser was to put Rosenberg in, and then I'm sure our knowledgeable kibitzers would have guessed. Can they not?
Well,
why not?
We have 3 Rosenbergs. You know, his wife Debbie playing in the transnationals, their son Kevin in the juniors, in the youth. So they can't really do that and need an initial.
So that's Deb and Kev, is it? The other 2?
Probably, yes. But what is wrong now? Surely the hand is over. And by the way, Kevin Rosenberg was on the winning team. He's a world champion now. Let's see if his father can do the same. Yes, he was on the USA team, winning the gold medal.
I saw also that Loria and Versace are playing in the Zimmerman team of the, whatever it's called, the fun teams, the open teams that has already been playing for a few days.
Transnational teams, it's called. Yes, 8 teams qualified for today's quarterfinals. They were one of them, and they are on now. The Zimmerman team. They have a great team. The team Percy, it's called, with Zia, David Gold, Peter Crouch, Andrew Robson, Marion Michelsen, and Anita Sinclair. Well, that's a pretty good team, David.
Yes, I saw that one. They're still batting. What are the partnerships in that team?
I don't really know. Well, I know that Peter Crouch and Anita Sinclair have been practicing a lot on BBO. I think they are partners. Let's see the rest. Sia has played with Marion Michelsen on several occasions. So
opening lead and the contract. They've even removed the bidding, and Rombo went 3 down, so he lost 2 imps.
Right. Okay. And I don't think we get to see this board either, David. Surely they have played board 2, even with Michael Rosenberg at the table. So we get a claim. It's my guess, or maybe just quick play. It's very unfortunate to have this screw up in a Bermuda Bowl final. Not the operator's fault. We have the wonderful Margarita in this room, David. She's good. It's not her fault.
Of a session when the other table has closed down and the kibitzers rush over from there and join the ones who've been enjoying the table that's still playing. Of course, we're very proud of getting something like 5,000 or 6,000 kibitzers on BBO, until I heard that for the Chess World Championships they have over 1 million people watching. Probably that's so many youngsters who haven't got jobs to do, absolutely adoring this new game that's hooked them. But imagine that. Imagine the website that can cope with so many people. Anyway, forget about that. This is a far superior game, much more interesting to watch than drab.
Case, I don't think so. No. Certainly none of the French players, because last time France won the Bermuda Bowl was wait a second, can I remember at all? Was that 20 years ago? And they were much too young then, but even at least 20 years ago.
The commentator said 20 years ago. Yeah, one the French commentator in the written commentary, I think.
Right. Yeah. But, well, it's true. 2005 Bermuda Bowl was in Estoril, was not in Portugal. Never mind. It was at the time where we had a limit as to how many people could log into BBO. Do you remember that one, David? That the limit was 9,999.
I see. Well,
yeah, easily enough, right?
They
So
couldn't afford one more space on the screen then.
now, since then, the software was rewritten, so we can now accept an unlimited number of people online.
Right, well, the Trumps lay very badly, and as a result they got doubled in 4 spades at the other table, going off 2 because of the break, and that's 6 imps away. See, if the cards had lain a little bit better, then it would have been a swing in the other direction, but of course that heart finesse is more or less certain to be wrong when South has opened with a weak 2 in hearts, in effect.
I think I saw Victor Silverstone write that he is biased, cheering for USA, and if you don't know why, I'll tell the audience why. It's because Victor is Scottish, and Michael Rosenberg is half Scottish at least. He lived in Scotland for many, many years before he moved to USA.
Right, well, I don't particularly support one team over the other, but I do think that France are favourites to win. I've seen the occasional bad boards going by.
Hard hand. And many will agree, but you see what can happen if you do. You will miss your great heart fit.
Some players are not bothered about that, because if they say if we've got a great heart fit, the opponents will probably have a big spade fit. So it'll still be worth preempting them, but that's not actually the case here, as we can see.
I was right 20 years. France won the Euro in 1997. And Rosenberg second and third in the past. So no, we have no players with a Bermuda Bow title to his name, or to their names rather.
So we see that they
They can lead and cannot make a slam. Even if you get diamonds right, you only have 11 tricks.
When I first started playing the game, of course you all know that in England nearly all the club players use a weak no trump. The idea then was that you would rebid one no trump on 15-16. It's a pretty silly idea really, and you had to jump to two no trumps on 17. Well, it was realised fairly soon that that was rather a waste of getting so high on only a 17 count. So they changed it to show that one no trump showed 15-17, the rebid when you were playing it. And then two no trumps became 18-19. That's so much better. And some people even play it as forcing. There was some method in America where some wolf scheme such that West could sign off with a long major at the 3 level with some relay bid, maybe 3 clubs, but it wasn't very impressive to me how often when facing an 18 count. We mentioned that this final is a splendid 128 ball long, so of course a margin of 17 ints at this early stage is of no consequence whatsoever. But for those of us who think France started out as favourites, then any sort of early lead like this increases the chance of us getting a fantastically competitive match that goes right down to the wire on Saturday. They're playing 3 sets today and tomorrow, and 2 sets on the Saturday. That was a bit of space, no doubt, for some wonderful prize giving. Often in tournaments used to be a rather splendid dinner at the end, but I suppose there are so many players here. I think I read somewhere it's just going to be a buffet this time. Sure to be bouncers on the door anyway to make sure no one gets in who doesn't qualify for the splendid free buffet. Right, now this sequence is obviously a splinter bid with spades agreed. However, I think it may even have been this pair who had a disagreement on a similar hand. I think it was. I wrote it up in the bulletin. It was not so obvious as this, where obviously four clubs is bound to be a splinter bid. But anyway, they misread it, and Pepsi had bid 4 clubs natural on a passed hand with 5 or 6 card club support, and they ended in 6 clubs doubled when the contract at the other table was one no trump. You mentioned that. I claimed the world record for the greatest discrepancy of contract between the tables. Very unlucky to run into a double, but I mean the guy who had 2 aces, he just thought he'd heard enough. I mean, Rosenberg quite rightly read it as a splinter bid. He signed off in 4 spades, he signed off in 5 spades, because his partner was trying to sign off in clubs, and he thought, the splinter bid, yes, he's got a singleton, he bids 5 clubs, oh, he's got a void, has he? Yes, well, I'm still going to sign off. And when partner bid clubs for the 6th time, the defender said, enough is enough, I'm doubling. Yeah, we're used to seeing lots of fantastic competitive bidding sequences here, but not, not so many of them between two partners in a world-class team. If you're puzzled by the four diamond bid, it's just that there was only one bid left for West to make to say that he was still interested in the slam. That was four diamonds, and so that is a method that invented by Eric Rodwell, I think, called last train slam try. Was the last train is your last chance to get back home without lying on a railway bench all night, and four diamonds is your last chance to suggest a slam before the game level is reached.
Yes, he was inspired by the monkeys. You remember them, David? The last train to Clarksville.
Hey, hey, it's the monkeys.
Yes, yes, indeed.
Last train to Clarksville.
Yes. Monkeys spelled M-O-N-K-E-E-S.
Yes, on their first LP, as it was then, they had about 9 or 10 splendid tracks, and the final track was absolutely appalling, total rubbish, and the reason for that is that they played all the guitars and drums on that track, and they had professional session men coming in just to play all the instruments on the other tracks, including all their single hits, because they were just good at the vocals. Yes, our favourite German kibitzer has a question for you, Roland. He says, please name all the members of the Monkeys group. In fact, he asked me, but I mean, I'm sure he meant to have sent it to you. It's just he put the wrong name in the question.
Can't. Not without looking it up. No, I can't. I can name the members of Rolling Stones and Beatles. Is that okay?
No. Well, perhaps they should have pursued their fortune on board 5 and got up to 6 spades on this rather drab pair of hands, because the cards lie, fortunately.
Has taken an early lead in the Venice Cup final against China. 3-2 after 6 boards.
Forget if we mentioned it, but at the other table we have Grew North, Moss South for USA2. They play a very interesting system where they play precision club non-vulnerable, and when they're vulnerable and worried about getting heavy intervention, particularly from non-vulnerable opponents, they switch to 2/1. Play quite a lot of relays, and truly wonderful pair in the France team, Lorenzini West and Quentin East.
Quite normal for Thomas Bessis and Frédéric Volcker to sit out in the first set.
Are they still in bed?
How would I know? Probably not. So this is 10-12. They are non-vulnerable in second seat, 10-12.
So against no trumps up to 12-14 usually, maybe 13-15. It's customary to play a penalty double, so that on some deals, including perhaps this one, East-West can judge that they do have game values despite the one no trump opening. Now some pairs like to play the same defense against both ranges if they're likely to encounter both those types of one no trump opening in their country, and therefore they may keep a penalty double against a strong no trump, but it's not the best use of double against the strong no trump just looking at that situation alone at all, because you've got 15-17 against you, and the main objective of the double is not to penalise them necessarily, but to make sure you reach your games, and that is much less likely that you've got a game unless you have a big distributional fit against a strong no trump.
East at this table, Michael Rosenberg, he wouldn't agree with you, David. He wants to play penalty doubles against strong no trumps as well.
Right. Well, the big advantage of doing that is that you cut off all hands of about 15-16 points upwards, and then your partner knows that when you make instead a distributional call, you're limited, and it gives you freedom to make such calls on even 9 counts, something like that. So because you have double in your locker, partner's not going to worry if he's got some sort of moderate fit that you might be missing a game and raise 2 hearts to 3 hearts, say. He can play safe. So to use a double is good for that reason, in the same way that a precision club is a good opening, because then if you bid anything else, your partner knows you've got 15 or fewer points in your hand. And here they have indeed bid game. The thing you have to decide in your partnership is whether when one no trump is doubled, you keep your standard methods on, that's called system on, so you play Stamen and transfers, or whether you want to have all 4 suits available for a run out, a rescue, including clubs and diamonds. And that seems to be what South is playing, because he's bid 2 hearts and not 2 diamonds.
But now it becomes interesting. Now, whether 3 hearts shows spades or it asked for a heart stopper, then it doesn't really make sense for West to bid 4 spades here. Well, I don't think East has promised a balanced hand when he doubles one no trump. It's just shown cards, isn't it?
Yes, and probably on average he's only going to have 2 spades when you've got 5. A lot of people would play 2 no trumps Lebenssoul over this, so they could use it as to get out into a competitive hand with not much strength, but a long suit somewhere. But if over 2 no trumps and partner bids 3 clubs, you then go on bidding, perhaps by bidding 3 no trumps, perhaps by Q bidding hearts, then you show that you do have game values. And anyway, it seems that the Americans were not well equipped here, because that's a bit of a frightening auction.
Well, a simple way to play this is that over the double and 2 hearts by south, a run out in hearts, jump to 3 spades. Show game forcing values with 5 spades, partner. Isn't that a simple way of doing it?
Yes, that is indeed part of the Lebenssoll method. If you just want to sign off in something, well, when you've got spades, you can bid 2 spades. But if you bid 2 no trumps and then 3 spades, that's a game try. And if you bid 3 spades directly, it's game forcing. Now, normally all this happens when your partner's opened 1 no trump and they've overcalled 2 hearts, but there's absolutely no reason why you shouldn't play the same methods opposite a double of 1 no trump. There's another form of Lebenssoll which involves transfer bids, which I've never really looked at closely, but the people who play it say it's much even better.
Yes,
but Lebenssoll in general is one of the great conventions.
I agree. It is called transfer Lebenssoll or Rubensoll. Some play Rumpelsoll. Interest, but hey, I don't need the Lebenssoll convention here to jump to 3 spades. I'm sure partner will take that as forcing with 5 spades. And now when partner bids 3 no trumps, well, I'm happy and I pass.
Yes, but the advantage of playing Lebenssoll is that you can describe such a load of other hands, including a game try in spades. Now, when it comes to choosing which conventions to play, obviously the most important aspect is, does it have a very impressive name? And that has to take precedence. Of course, some players think over to whether it's at all useful or whether it occurs very often. So for example, the fantastic convention Raptor, I think that's when you overcall in a 4-card major when you've got a longer minor. You don't even have to look to see, is that a good convention? Am I taking up a useful bid? Will it arise very often? It's just such a great name that you obviously want to play it. And a few days ago, when Roland and I were commentating, someone said, oh well, in this position I use the poo convention. And it didn't sound very good. It was the name of the convention that had appealed to him.
That was yesterday Adam Parrish, wasn't it? Yes, he plays the poo convention. Wonderful.
I can't even remember what it was, but he said he liked to play poo. And I told him that a lot of players do that.
Pass plus August to make it poo, I think it was. Pass or August. P-O-O. Yes, it was. Yes.
Right, so that's 11 imps back to close the scores because of the lack of system from the USA2 pair here. So that was a bad mistake at this level.
Okay, so here we have 3 no trumps or 5 clubs. Not an accident, please. Don't get to 6. Off to aces. We've seen enough of that, really. And we saw it the other day too. in the quarterfinals, where one pair bid to 7 clubs, missing the ace of trumps.
The tragedy of that was that they were only in 5 diamonds at the other table, so just by bidding 6 they could have got a huge swing, and by going to 7 they lose a huge swing, and that total net swing was double the final losing margin. Such a shame.
They found the strain because you cannot make 6 diamonds, but you can make 6 clubs.
That was a board where USA2 were very unlucky because they played in 6 diamonds, and there was ace to 4 clubs opposite a singleton in their 4 forfeit, and they did suffer a rough. The Bulgarian West made 2 very good leads in the space of just 3 boards. It took quite a while to find the ace of clubs lead. Then rapidly played another one, and 6 diamonds was off, and they played in game at the other table. So we can see they're playing
2 clubs. That's game forcing, yes, so you can rebid 3 clubs. I know that in America even there's a school of thought that if you bid 2 clubs, which is game forcing in principle, it's no longer game forcing if you repeat the suit at the 3 level, a minor. I don't like it, but some play that.
No, one of the problems of 2 over 1 is that you sometimes have to bid 1-note trump on pretty good hands. Certainly flat 11 counts, occasionally really drab 12 counts if you think you'd rather do that than force a game on the 12 count. And we noted that Helness and Helgamo, who sort of play 2 over 1 but don't play 1-note trump forcing, what they do is they play that a jump shift is natural and invitational. So if there's a heart opening and they've got a 9 count with a good 9 or 10 count with a good diamond suit, they don't have to risk bidding 1-note trump and having that passed. They can bid 3 diamonds to say I've got an invitational hand, non-forcing with diamonds. So that's pretty good, but of course 3 clubs and 3 diamonds have got other possible meanings. The Bergen convention to describe fairly precisely the degree of your raise of partners major.
In the Venice Cup final, the score is 3-3 now, and Sweden leads by 11. In the seniors, but they are playing for bronze, so that's not so interesting. It's more interesting to know. Well, it's interesting for the Swedes, obviously, to get a bronze medal, but the final in the Dorsey Trophy, the seniors, is between USA2 and Italy. Oh right, Italy leads 13-2.
So this could have been a tricky hand if East was in range for 1-note trump, because if South just bids 2 hearts, then they would This is a spade fit, perhaps.
Now here we have the
Anyway,
eternal debate whether to open one club or one diamond with 4-4 in the minors. And I tell you, Michael Rosenberg doesn't really care. Sometimes he opens one club and sometimes he opens one diamond. And that's the agreement he had with Sear. He said, well, we open one club or we open one diamond. We don't have any agreements. We can do whatever we like. Let's see what he does here.
a lot of the top players in England always open a club. Well, part of the reason is that they do it on a weak no trump hand anyway, whatever their shape is, even on a doubleton, because they're just going to use that as a cipher by the time they really win no trump. But even if they don't, they still prefer to open a club. But I think I've sometimes overstated the advantage of that, because at least if you bid a diamond, you're showing a suit that partner knows has got some substance, and so in other words, you're naming a suit worth bidding most of the time. And in some cases, some auctions you want to rebid 2 clubs, although it's not very nice to open a diamond and rebid 2 clubs on 4-4, and that's probably the main reason given for it favouring one diamond by American teachers.
Yes, but playing Akon, as they do in English clubs, David, I mean, you can safely open one club, because one club is also a suit, 4 plus cards.
Well, that's true, yeah, but you can equally well open a diamond, so it's the other arguments that then have to be compared. So they've got to 4 hearts. The problem would have been if they didn't have a heart fibber, then maybe North would be able to bid spades, or South could maybe double 2 diamonds, say, if they were in that.
That solves the spade problem. But then, of course, you can get a ruff instead, but you can only take 3 tricks altogether.
Looks like 5 diamonds would have been 2 down, probably. So it's a small save against 620, but not one you want to aim for anyway, because even if everything works okay, and you're only 2 down, and they can make 620, that's only 3 imps or so, and if you're wrong, you can lose a lot of imps in double figures. So you've got to hope to get out for 1 down, really, if you're sacrificing game all, or some chance of getting out for 1 down. On these cards, if East-West were non-vulnerable, then they would clearly sacrifice, particularly Westward. He's the one with the shape.
There's a case for going up with the ace here to play hearts. You have no quick entry to dummy, so you don't really want to win it in the hand.
Do I mind when declarer takes a fair time to plan the contract at trick 1? Of course I don't. It's very good policy when you're playing the hand, or when anyone's playing the hand, and when a world-class declarer does it, you know it's a tricky contract. If there was some obvious answer to how to play this hand, he would have done it about 2 minutes ago. So the more he thinks about it, the more I start to get interested and wonder what's going through these great players' minds. Well, there's another great point made by Patrick Huang in the written commentary. If declarer goes up with the ace and plays a trump, and East, who's opened the bidding, doesn't go in with the ace of trumps to give partner a ruff, then it may well be it's because he doesn't have the ace. You shouldn't think, oh, he may have ace queen X, because this guy's not going to lead a singleton if he's only got one trump, is he? He would be in 5 diamonds already if he was 1-1 probably in the major suits.
When is it wrong to go in with the ace of spades? If the lead is from queen third, but I think you can disregard that. Why would West not have led a diamond if he had 3 spades?
Yes, exactly. I think he may still be thinking how to play the trumps. If he was really short of entries to the north hand, he could go up and lead the queen of clubs, because if that finesse is winning, whether it gets covered or not, you can go back in clubs then to make the play you want to do in the other suit. I think we saw a play like that in the Venice Cup yesterday.
So declarer went down in the other room, got the same lead, played the ace from dummy, and a heart to the king. And down he was, diamond switch, spade ruff, and the queen of hearts, down 1. So it's a very interesting board, this. And I think Patrick's point is valid. I agree with that. I think it's a good board, David, and you may want to use it.
Oh yes, definitely, particularly as there's a swing. It's also interesting because the bidding is more or less identical. It went a diamond, a heart, 3 diamonds, 3 hearts, 4 hearts.
And we have a swing now. And new leader.
Well, Rosenberg gives the rough. I mean, he has to do it. Hope there's another trick coming from somewhere, but he can't be that confident. And of course there's a discard of a club on the spade.
He doesn't even need that. And here's the claim and the 12 imps.
So I think we can say that the 11 and the 12 imps that have gone on the last 3 boards were well deserved for France. Not that they did anything particularly good, but the USA team sort of gave away points in a way by bidding into a 5-1 spade for 4 spades, and then by Declare not doing quite so well as Mr. Combescour. Brad Moss is south at the other table.
Here
My
comes
wife,
an interesting. Go on. Well, I was just going to comment before your wife
you go.
comes into the picture, is whether North should make a move over 2 spades. I know many would, but I still think it's against the odds, you know. That's all. Over to you, Dave.
I think most players would, because the King of Hearts is not a dead card. No, I was going to say my wife rarely remembers any bridge hands after the session, but she did actually ask me about a hand where she said she had the same shape as South has here, 4-5-2-2, and 15 points, and she opened a heart and partner bid a spade, and she said, well, what should I have bid? You know, I just bid 2 spades and it was passed out and we made 11 tricks or something. So I told her on that hand in general, it's halfway between bidding 2 spades and 3 spades, isn't it? Of course, she couldn't remember exactly how well the honours were disposed.
Well, 2-no trumps would be an inquiry for most people. But I'm not sure about this pair, because most pairs in France do not race with 3 cards. But if you do, I certainly don't mind that you do. If you do, then you need a relay to find out about 3 or 4 card support, if you have at least invitational values, of course.
Now, South has a complete minimum in terms of points, but a very good holding in clubs, the suit of the ask. So he's certainly cutting off losers there, and he had to balance that against the overall weakness of his hand, which was 11 points with 5 of them in a doubleton, so that was a close decision.
Well, the start would probably be the same in the other room. 1 heart, 1 spade, 2 spades. So now let's see what Joe Grew does. Well, we've got a question here. It's a different topic, but okay, we can take it. When playing Jacoby 2-no Trump's response to one of a major opening, should one always have 4 card support? Well, it depends who you ask. In my view, yes. And it was designed as such. Four-card support, yes.
The other question is whether it should be forcing to game or not, and there's some division there, but I think more and more players are now treating it as a game force.
The Italians, for instance, only need 3. So if it goes one spade, 2 no trups, it can be 3 cards.
Well, this may well be a swing to USA2, and again it will be fully deserved because the valuation has gone askew for North-South. Missing 3 aces and singleton king, doubleton king queen, holes in the trump suit, so you've got to find some way of stopping in, say, 3 spades.
Or, if you take the low road, as I it's in the other room. So I'm not alone.
But if South had 13, 14 points, it could be a good game. I don't think four.
Gone.
Well, I just don't think South was worth 4 spades, and it's all very well to look at the suit that partner's chosen for the game try, but I don't think you should look at it when you've got a dead minimum. I mean, he's already shown his 4-5, and he is 2-2 in those suits, which are 8, and his range for bidding 2 spades is something like 11 to 14, 15, and he's only got 11, so I think he should just have bid 3 spades. Yes, strange bidding out at the other table.
Well, it was
Grew and Moss, yeah, so it's artificial bidding, yeah. 1 spade was an artificial relay, and it guaranteed 0+ spades apparently. And 2 hearts rebid showed that he had spades, yeah. The South End had spades. So I suppose that showed a minimum.
Mm-hmm.
Right, 7 well-deserved imps.
Well, yes. Right, I don't understand the way he played the trump suit, but never mind. he wouldn't have made it. Redouble is the support redouble to show 3-card support for hearts.
Maybe made on an 11 count, maybe on an 18 count, and once East announces whether there is a heart, fit or not a 5-3-1 or make some other bid to warn that there isn't, then West can show any additional strength. So he has got 5 hearts and he does want to be in game, and he doesn't waste space, giving away information. Just jumps straight to 4 hearts. Very nice auction. And may not make that much difference, but Michael Rosenberg has the advantage of South's double. If he has to make any guesses in suits, he can expect the missing honours to be reason some experts find it amusing to open with preempts when they do have a Queen Doubleton somewhere. They say, well, it's not really a very good bid, but if they end up playing it, I'll probably make my Queen of Trumps.
It's not the greatest of contracts, but it will make, as the cards lie. The other 2 finals, after 11 boards, England plus 13 against China in the Venice Cup, and Italy also plus 13 in their match against USA2.
I know it's just a fact of life that we have to accept, but it seems a shame to me that yesterday, when there was a pretty thrilling Venice Cup semi-final between England and Sweden, and indeed I watched the whole of the final set, although I didn't commentate. There were only 350 people watching that and 2,700 watching Bulgaria against USA2. And that's a pity. We were discussing it another day, Roland and I, how a lot of women's sports such as rugby, cricket and football, the women are eventually, after a few decades, managing to get quite good support for their play, and it's much better than you'd expect. I watched England ladies playing a big rugby match, I think a world semi-final against France the other day, but it just doesn't seem to happen in bridge. Of course, the
No.
play may be slightly better in the Bermuda Bowl, but I mean it was very good yesterday in the Venice Cup.
Didn't they have a capacity crowd at Lord's also in the Women's World Cup final?
Absolutely
I think
packed
they did.
out, yes, and what a
Yes.
great game it was, England against India, yeah. Even though they played well, when I saw that hand yesterday where we mentioned it right at the start, where the diamond was led from 5 to the 10, I thought, oh well, that couldn't possibly happen in the Bermuda Bowl. And now everyone tells me it did, and they all went 3 off when by going up with the ace of diamonds you could make 2 over tricks. And that was what seems to be a clearly marked play in the cold light of day. In this match we've had plenty of swings, so we can't complain about that. Somehow, I don't know, the tension doesn't seem to be there on the first set of an 8-set match. It's such a long match. So the excitement will no doubt come in the later stages, but we can't complain about the boards we've had. Started with a couple of part scores and it's been games ever since then.
Yes, but they shouldn't all have been games. Even this, you know, where you have the ace of spades on side. Still not great, is it?
No, I suppose that's partly because for roughing clubs you would be roughing with honours. But still, I think you'd expect everyone to get there.
Maybe a little
What would
tougher
happen?
if you don't play support redoubles.
What would happen if West passes? What would you expect?
Well, exactly, if you don't play support redoubles. So if it goes 1 diamond, 1 heart, double, pass, 1 spade
No,
from north.
if West passes in first seat, if,
Oh, no
if you
one
don't
will.
play support, no, they
No one.
won't. If you don't play support redoubles, you would raise the hearts. Obviously, you'd bid 2 hearts, and partner wouldn't know if you had 3 or 4. That's for the purpose of playing support redoubles. No, they would all open that 11 count, but I mean, even if they didn't, and it goes pass, 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 1 heart, and now 2 clubs, Drury, they'd probably get there.
Now, what I was saying is, say you don't play support doubles. You open the West hand. Fine. 1 diamond, 1 heart, double, pass. Now, East has no idea. He knows you don't have hearts, but he doesn't know whether you have a 2 or 3, or even a singleton.
That is why West would bid 2 hearts, so of course with ace, queen, X and a doubleton club.
In the other room did not play support doubles. West passed. North bid a spade, and of course East had to act, so he doubled to show cards, and now West could show his 3-card support for hearts.
Yes, but they're representing France at the other table where 4 cards are promised. I don't think an American or English player or Danish player would pass. Sound dictum on all minimum hands, you should try and show what you've got early on and then leave it to partner. So when you've got ace queen x support, just show it and then get out and leave it to partner, not try to guess what to do if you pass and someone else bids this or that.
Why is it taking so long for Michael Rosenberg to play? Norse covered the 10 of, or the Jack of Diamonds. It was actually a good play by on board, as it turns out. See, and now he got diamonds wrong. He would probably still make it, but he will not make an overtrick anymore. Is 50 imps exchanged in 11 boards a little too much at this level? No. That's about average, isn't it? You would say that 4.5 imps per board is pretty normal. So no, it's spot on actually.
Well, that completely depends on the boards. I think you have to look at why the imps were exchanged, and on most of the boards it was due to superior play at one table, inferior play at the other. So I would say that more imps had been exchanged than should have been on these boards. And maybe if we look at the other matches where they're playing the same boards, we'll see that they hadn't changed 50. I don't know, that 4.5 may be an average. I'm surprised if it's that high, but it certainly depends on how swingy the boards are, as you pointed out yourself, Roland, when we were discussing it last time. They're more or less up with the requested rate of play. That's what it seems like. Hasn't been particularly quick, hasn't been particularly slow. Got 2 hours 20 as the allocation, but in these big knockout matches the tournament directors are not going to particularly strict about it. They'd want to keep to the published schedule for starting the next session for security reasons, so that everyone starts at the same time and no one has a chance to sort of get a glimpse of any BBO screens. But there's a reasonable gap in terms of minutes between recommended end of play and the start of the next session. It often happens that some of the longest pauses are when a defender's on lead and we can see that there's nothing that he can do, but he's going round and round through various possibilities and thinking, is there any chance whatever on what I've seen so far that we can get this off? And they're reluctant to put some card on the table.
Cheek remark.
They've just finished board 14 at the other table, so not even mentioning the words time pressure for them. And we've got a full half hour for 4 boards anyway, so we're all right too. I think Roland told us a week ago or so that they've got pretty strict anti-smoking rules at this tournament. Not even allowed to stand on the front steps of the building and smoke there.
No. other room. It was one spade in the third seat and Drury by North. Too high.
Well, it's a sort of very borderline Drury bid, isn't it? 6-2-2. You don't really know how good your clubs are, and unfortunately they're facing a singleton. I think two spades is a better bid than Drury, don't you?
I do. However, you see, King Jack of clubs, 4 points. Ace of clubs, 4 points. King Jack of clubs opposite a singleton, 1 loser. Ace of clubs opposite a singleton, no loser. It has to be revised, that scale, David. I really think it does. I mean, ace, for instance, was at least 6. I mean it. Every time you have a fit, at least, aces should count 6 or 7.
Yes, I mean, but when you're talking about raising partner's suit, most people use the losing trick count, and there, in general, aces are counted the same as queens. You see how many of the ace, king, queen you've got for the first 3 cards of partner's holding. But they make some allowance anyway for aces by saying that if you've got no aces, then you should add a further loser. And it's only just a guide for players when they start playing, although many people, I know I used to use the losing trick count quite a lot, even for 40 years or so. But you've still got to bear in mind that if you've got queen to 3 side suit, it's not going to be as good as ace to 3, is it? And king to 3 better than queen to 3. So you've got to allow something for your total point count, even if you just want to use something as basic as that for measuring it. So here North did only bid 2 spades rather than 2 clubs, a Drury bid. East doubled for takeout, and now South is looking at his losers. 1 in spades, 1 in hearts, 2 and 1. He's got 5 losers, so he's fully entitled to make a game try of 3 hearts. West has got a good hand, and there's a diamond fit there, so maybe, well, North has obviously passed, yes. He's got, even though they thought it was worth Drury at the other table. And it's possible now that South might bid 4, thinking, well, I haven't got that much defence against 4 diamonds, I don't expect he will.
Well, it doesn't really make sense to bid 4 spades now, does it? Why didn't you jump to 4 spades then?
Well, the only difference is that your alternative now is to let them play in 4 diamonds, so if you... Yeah, I wouldn't bid 4 spades now. That's what you thought your hand was worth. If you thought your hand was worth 3 hearts and part of your values were a singleton diamond, then maybe once you thought East-West had a lot of points in diamonds, you might judge that you could go to 4 now because partners' points were likely to fill your gaps, but none of that applies here, so I don't think if Combescure should change his mind. I agree with you.
Well, exactly. Now, you made a game try with 3 hearts. Now, over 4 diamonds, partner could have bid 4 spades. You say, well, I like my hand now with your game try. He didn't. He passed. So you should pass as well.
North had a totally obvious pass, and one of the reasons for that is that he's expecting his partner to hold length now in both majors, and that decreases the chances that his King Jack 10 to 6 clubs is any use to man or beast.
That is a very good lead, I have to say, because I think this contract would have made on a spade lead. This is a very good lead.
Well, low doubletons are good leads in general, and North is remembering the suit of the game try, which shows that South has got length in that suit, a long suit game try, and may well have honours that need to be led towards. What's more, the are quite likely to be held by the doubler, Rosenberg, with South sitting over them with some high cards. So if that is how Rombo's thoughts went, he'll be pleased to see that they exactly match the situation placed before us by the great dealer.
No, but there's nothing he can do really. You know, he may take a club finesse to get the singleton spade away. That won't be a success.
Right. Well, I was away for a short while. The phone rang, and it was a call for my wife, and I had to give her the phone in the bath. Family drama.
Oh, wonderful. Now that he went in with the ace, oh, ignore that. Sorry. But it was down on that hard lead, and it will probably go down too now.
So, did you reckon there was some chance of survival in 4 diamonds on a spade lead, say?
Yes, I think so, because North cannot get in. Now, after that...
Well, he can switch to a heart. What happens then?
Again, you can duck that, can't you? And then you cannot continue hearts. You can't get partner in to lead another heart.
So where does the loser go?
Well...
Well, someone's suggesting the club loser goes on the hearts, but if you duck the first heart, South will switch. Oh, South will switch to a club, and he doesn't have. You can in fact rise with the ace, and eventually set up a heart winner because South hasn't got another club. Yeah, well, that's a bit double dummy. Yeah.
So the mini, no trump again. North will be thinking slam still, opposite 10-12. Of course you could have a slam on. You're off to... so you don't. And he would probably make a slam try, which they did in the other room. Obviously, we don't have to look at the auction, but when they play in 4-no trumps, it's because one of them made a slam try, and it wasn't South. Let's see. Some can jump to 3 hearts to show that hand type, but that would normally deny the ace or the king in the suit. 3-1-5-4 or 3-1-4-5. It's not ideal when you have the ace. Some
we
can
saw
pick
yesterday
3 spades, which is minus suit statement. Sorry, David, you?
Well, we saw a good method yesterday where some pairs begin with 2 diamonds, which is treated initially as a transfer to hearts. But if over 2 hearts you bid 2 spades, this now shows that you're interested in the minor suits. And this indeed was the final board of a session between USA2 and Bulgaria, where Michael Rosenberg used that method, and he got to the ill-fated diamond slam on 6-4 shape in the minors and lost to club ruff to go down very unluckily. So that's another good method to use. I mean, we know how wonderful 2 diamonds is as a transfer, but by bidding 2 spades over 2 hearts you can get additional mileage from it by asking partner. He, for example, can show a 5-card minor straight away, or bid 2 no trumps and let you introduce a minor. They're bidding 3 clubs. Well, that's not at all clear. Well, Margareta has done well to tell us that it shows diamonds. It's a transfer. Now, usually 3 hearts now would be a singleton, because if you had 4 hearts and 5 diamonds, you could begin with Stamen, intending to bid 3 diamonds natural on the next round if you didn't find a heart fit. But again, you might not be inclined, as Roland was explaining, to show a singleton heart when it happens to be the ace. Will give a misleading impression to partner. So this is just showing 5 diamonds and maybe 4 clubs if they had some different bid, some different route to show 5-5, because you're up and will to know whether you've got 4 or 5 clubs.
This is very, very dangerous, especially if you don't use kickback now.
I think this is the moment when South should have bid 4 no trumps, signing off, and that may have been the auction at the other table, because 4 hearts is a Q bid. Well, what suit's been agreed? And you've only got kings anyway, and partner's showing you a minor 2 suitor. Your hand is hopeless, really, isn't it? 2 king queens and nothing in the minors, so that if you ever want to sign off in 4 no trumps, this is the hand.
I agree completely. Yes. not like that 4 hard bit by South. An unassuming qubit. I know David doesn't like the term, but that's what it's called. Unassuming, I mean either club or diamond support. I don't think South has the hand for it. He should have the ace of hearts and a fit. Very, absolutely, very, very lucky.
Right, well, the French give USA2 a couple of imps by way of apology. Sorry lads, we were a bit lucky there. Take 2 imps. South opens with what appears to be a natural 2 diamonds at the other table. Pass plus 2 no trumps, and West let that stand. We were talking about losers a while ago. You can see that North does have a 7 loser hand, so he's not particularly worried if he gets the spades raised. His points are brilliantly distributed in the long suits where they're going to pull their weight, and a singleton diamond as well, so that's quite a nice hand, and you got a few mavericks would have opened that in other seats too.
Hmm.
Some people in Europe will play 2 diamonds forcing if South is not a passed hand. I think it may be normal in the States to play 2 diamonds as invitational and non-forcing, even on a non-passed hand, and they have to begin with all sorts of strange shapely redoubles just so they can make a forcing bid in diamonds later on, which I can say I don't like the method, but you have to admit that it works well when partner does have some hand, like South's now, where he wants to express it but not to force partner to bid again. You're just likely to lose out when you've got a strong hand and may get a bit of preemption.
Declarer has 3 diamond losers, and 1 spade is 4, 1 heart is 5, 1 club is 6, 1 down.
Right, so this will probably take quite a few seconds, so let me take advantage of the opportunity to thank very much Margareta Chavaria, a brilliant operator, working away out of our sight but not out of our minds, because we very much appreciate her hard work session after session. We spoke briefly about the players and the ancient view graph operators, but surely the ancient commentators, I meant to say, but surely the view graph operators have the most taxing job of them all, comparable even to the players. So well done to her, she's done well. Well done to these world-class players, deserve the final of the world's greatest tournament. Absolutely great to watch them play, we've enjoyed it a lot. Thanks to you all for coming along to watch, that's been good. Many thanks to Roland as always, we've done the first session almost every day during the last 2 weeks and I've enjoyed it a lot. And of course thanks to BBO for providing this wonderful multicoloured platform for us all to enjoy the greatest tournament in the world free of charge as it happens.
Yes, it has been good, and we get a nice long lunch break now. 1 hour and 17 minutes. Well, we have to play board 16 also, of course, but it will be over an hour. So that's good. Play will resume at 14:30 in Central European time.
If this sort of scoreline proves to be, that will still be close. In 2 days' time, imagine that, playing a bridge match that stretches over 3 days, almost as long as a cricket match.
Longer than some cricket matches, David.
What, England against the West Indies?
Yeah.
At school we played cricket matches in an afternoon. It just goes to show how absolutely appalling the pitches. West opened a club, and yet South ended up playing in clubs. Club passed a spade, a double, redouble, that's support redouble that we've seen already in this session. 1 note from North. 2 spades from East, benefiting from knowing that it was a 5-3 spade fit. And South, having heard 1 no trump, decided he'd contest with 3 clubs. And lucky boy, he found 4 clubs in the dummy.
In the Venice Cup final, England leads by 11 with one board to score, and USA2 by 6 in the seniors.
Right, well I rather liked the 1-no trump bid by North at the other table. He knew his partner was asking for the red suits and he had nothing much there. And all his values were in the east-west card, so he'd like to warn his partner off by bidding 1-no trump, even though it showed some values. It would be denying any fit in the reds, so no reason for South to bid there. And here South hasn't gone to 3 clubs. Well, of course he didn't have the 1-no trump bid from North, which obviously showed something in clubs.
Yeah. The French have been outbid here. 3 clubs made in the other room, as it would have here, I suppose, as well. And 2 spades is a make. Although you have to lose 2 spade tricks, you only have 1 more heart to lose, and you have the king queen of diamonds on side.
Yes, so that's a triumph for, who is it, Grew in the North seat, who found the 1-no trump bid. Only a minor point, very low scoring contracts, but it still will be a very worthwhile number of imps to close the gap yet further, making a part score at both tables, rewarded by the conversion score into imps, as it should be.
Take the 110 here, plus the 110 at the other table, 6 imps, and we have a 1 imp game, 34-33. Thanks, David. Thanks, everyone. See you later. Bye-bye.
Yeah, thanks Roland. Bye for now.